Welcome to the Southborough Trails Committee meeting, calling the meeting to order at 7:31 on January 10th, 2023. Let's do a roll call. Will Warren.
Here.
Isabella Bogdansky.
Here.
Tom McCoolier.
Here.
And Kathy Key here. Does anyone want to volunteer to take minutes? And we're not looking to record every detail that's discussed, just common topics and subjects.
I'll take minutes. Or you want to do them, Isabella?
It doesn't matter. I can take them. That's fine.
Okay.
Great.
I'll just say I don't want to because
Well,
I'll do a bad job.
this is being recorded, so I mean you can always consult the recording
That is true.
later.
Yeah.
So you don't necessarily have to be jotting things down in real time.
That is so true.
The only requirement is, Bella, do you type as you are you comfortable typing as it happens?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, great. So what I'll do is I'll send you the agenda. So
Okay.
in Word, so you can kind of just jot underneath each agenda item. That might make it a little easier for you.
Okay, perfect.
And then what would be great and what we've gotten in the habit of, no pressure, is Sati's been sending them to me right after the meeting. So those are great. If you need some time, that's great.
Okay,
But
yeah,
because-
I could definitely send them to you right after the meeting.
Thank you. We're doing, because we're doing back-to-back meetings, we're not going to approve the minutes today from last week, but we will get, next week we'll get both.
Okay.
So what day are we? The 10th, hold on. Isabella. Agenda. Okay, great. And I'll send you last minutes as well so that you can see the structure and just kind of you can do some copy paste. It'll make your life easier.
Mhm.
All right, you should be getting that now. Okay. So first order of business, we are not approving the minutes, so I will do that next time. We'll punt. The third item is quick. So the EDC reached out to us, and I've yet to be able to reach back out to him. And I'm thinking, who is the EDC chair? Does anyone know off the top of your head?
No, I could quickly go on their website.
I think it's
I mean-
Anderson comes to mind. Let me see. Robert Anderson, yeah. So he reached out, and EDC is looking looking to propose, I think they presented in front of the select board to propose a part-time grant writer that would benefit not only EDC, but other boards, committees, and commissions. And this topic came up a few years ago. I believe Sam Stivers had made that recommendation. So I don't know if it will go anywhere, but it is a wonderful idea that the town would for certain pay for any part-time employee that would be able to get grants. So he asked to attend a future meeting, and I have it on tonight's agenda, but wanted to chat with you guys that I'll just let him know that we're meeting the next few Mondays, Tuesdays, and if he wants to join us, to certainly feel free to do so, and to talk to us about his idea, and we can discuss any questions at that time. So any thoughts on that?
I
Would
think
we
it's a
have to
great
pay?
idea.
Would
Great
we have
idea.
to pay?
No pay.
No pay.
No, it would
Okay.
be a part-time employee by the town. I think, yeah, and I could be botching that a little bit, but he'll fill us in on the real details. But yeah, I think it's a great idea.
But we wouldn't have to, as a committee, would not have to pay for it.
No, out
Okay.
of our total budget. No.
Let's use them, at least 2,000 or 3,000 hours this year then.
Well, I mean, we'd have to have grants to,
He's laughing, Catherine.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
You said we didn't have to pay.
2,000 hours is a normal work, is 1 year FTE.
Yeah, but this is a volunteer, so they should be willing to work quite a bit more.
Oh, you got an echo.
I didn't hear the echo. That must be on your Dell, Tom.
Someone
Mhm.
is,
Is it
okay,
me?
good. Someone is echoing us.
I'll go on mute.
Okay, so next up is the Trails Grant Agreement. I have great news, or this is the MOA, sorry. So I don't have great news on that. I reached out to John last week to see John Scannell from DCR, he's the watershed director, to see if DCR had an opportunity to consider the volunteer agreement, using the volunteer agreement versus the versus the MOA. And the conversation has started, but they haven't brought in all the parties yet. So that is still on hold. I did reach out to John today to see if we could schedule a call for this week, just to briefly connect about the project. I'd like to, we did receive the notice to proceed, which I'll talk about in a minute. So I wanted to see if I could talk to John about, make sure we're on the same page with the project that we're doing under the grant, and talk about coordination of timeline, talk about getting DPW involved and doing a kickoff call with DPW. And I need to put you on hold for just a moment because my cats are not doing well. Sorry. Okay, so I'm waiting to hear back from him on that. And once we're on board, once I know that he's good, and we'll talk about his timeline and asking him if we could move forward without an official agreement in place, you know, as long as we have his written understanding, that might be a possibility. And we do have DCR's landowner permission form to move forward with the project. So those types of written things in place might be sufficient while we work through the MOA, so we don't experience a longer delay than we already have. So I'll keep you updated on that. I'll report back next week. Any questions? Okay. So yeah, the good news is we received the grant agreement, the signed grant agreement from Mark Purple today, and we have now officially received our notice to proceed from DCR for the Mass Trails program. So that was the last piece we were waiting on to be able to move forward. So technically now, because none of the Mass Trails grant requires bid other than what we've already done, which was collect quotes and such, we should as a committee discuss our new quotes. We received a new quote from Mohawk Fence, and we have a new quote from Any Fence. So we need to look at those and decide who our vendor is.
These are for fences for the entranceway and also for the around the critical infrastructure.
Yeah.
And these are not included in the bid process.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And we confirmed that with Mark that we do not need to.
And the handicap parking is DPW will do that work?
Correct. And so one of the things I wanted to talk to John about is to make sure he's clear on all of the components and that DPW is doing the match for the accessible parking. And when we do our kickoff, obviously we need to give the new superintendent a little bit of time to get oriented to his new job, but to reach out to him and have him join us on the kickoff call. So we'll probably, him or her, I don't know exactly who it is now. So we will need to update the new superintendent. I think Karen has filled the person in on the project. So we just need to reconnect, answer any questions, make sure he or she feels comfortable with the project scope, and then go into the kickoff meeting so everyone's on the same page.
Did we get a written thing from Karen as to her commitment of DPW resources?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
Yep. And so that's good news. And I don't know if I think we should, if the group is comfortable, we can punt that conversation till next week. So that we have time to focus on the bid this week. And then Tom and we can reach out to references perhaps, and maybe Will, you want to help if you have a hand, maybe you both do it and I don't, because I'm a little flat out. I don't know who has time, but reach out to at least a reference. I think Mohawk provided a town. We asked for a municipal reference. I don't have those from any fence yet, but I'll reach out and ask them. And then we can just call the contact and say, how was your experience? And let that help us weigh in on the decision. I think, yeah. So any questions on that?
No.
Oh, yes, I do.
Excuse
Could you
me.
just quickly summarize that again?
Oh, sure. So basically, we are going to conduct reference calls this week for the 2 contractors that have been responsive, the fencing contractors. That's Mohawk Fence and Any Fence.
Now, we reached out to a third one and they did not respond?
Correct. New England Fence.
Okay, and you're going to get that documented so that it's Melanie Otsutsko has all that emails and things?
Yes, we have the email exchange. We have their original quote. And then we have that Tom has reached out multiple times. So I'll make sure those items are placed on the team SharePoint.
Right, but
What's-
just from the standpoint of we have to have 3 bids and a
Mhm.
non-response is a bid.
Correct.
We actually had them come out for a second site visit in December. I mean, we'll document all that. Second site visit in December with the feedback that the quote will come in a couple of days. And since then, I think we pinged them twice.
Bella, is that okay?
I'm
Yes,
sorry, I
it
got a
does.
call.
Thanks, Brenda.
And then could you just go over the DCR MOA Trails agreement? I was like signing into my Outlook account while you were.
Yeah, so the MOA is still on hold. And we are waiting for DCR to decide whether they can use an existing volunteer agreement over the MOA. Or not. And then Kat's going to reach out to John this week to discuss the project scope and whether we can proceed with the permission that we've received to date.
Put John's last name, so it's on the record.
Scannell, SCANNELL.
And the MOA stands for Memorandum of Acceptance or?
Memorandum of Agreement
Okay. And this is from whom to whom?
between DCR Watershed Division and Southborough, Town of Southborough / Trails Committee.
So this is something jointly signed by the 2?
Correct.
Okay.
No sign, no use trail.
And we have an existing one. It's just up for renewal.
Yes. No sign, no use, new trail.
So that's that piece. And so now ready to talk about the bid. So I'm going to share screens.
Yeah, I tell you, I read the one I really liked the bid, what is it called? The RFP plus Sunling and John Bitch Boardwalk.
Okay, so
The
what you're
Superior-
referring to, and Bella, this is where it's going to get a little wonky.
Yeah.
You just say the committee reviewed sample bids.
Yeah.
And that's what Tom is talking about. So let me just pull this up.
I was just like, wow, this one's, I like this one.
Yeah, hold on.
I think, did you mimic this one at all?
Yeah, I mimicked some of them.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I really like, and this goes to Warren's question
Okay.
last week.
So
the
is it a PDF?
specifications. Yeah, it's a
Sunling?
PDF. It's a PDF.
I haven't looked at that, but one question is, when we met with Mark, in discussing this, he made a big distinction between RFPs and bids. I just want, it may be that there's no difference with respect at this level, but obviously when you come to acceptance of the bid, there's a big difference between RFPs and bids, right? The
Yeah.
bid
Right,
is
I'm
just based
saying,
on price.
I'm just using this as a reference document,
Okay.
not
Is
our
this the right
document.
one? Are you seeing my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Is this it?
Yeah, what I really liked is, I think it's the specifications.
Yes, so I looked at this one, I liked it a lot as well, and I did takes some of the structure. So the
Yeah.
about and the about the project, about the organization, about the project, and then they outlined it here. Let's see, access for the project. Okay, and then specifications. Is everyone seeing everything? And we need to include this, Bella, in the minutes. So if you could say reference RFP Sundling, SUNDLING RFP, and we'll just include it in the materials for the minutes.
What was the name again?
It's Sundling, SUNDLING RFP is good enough.
And this is on the shared folder, right?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so this was an example of a bid from a firm that it's a great specification for how to kind of write something like this for a trails. So what I specifically like, Tom, too, is the duties and responsibilities of the contractor. That was really helpful and something I had not initially thought about. The site visits,
Yep.
performance, things like that. So I think we should, use similar structure when we're looking at hours.
Agreed.
So I'll kind of look through, like, I mean, I don't think it needs to be as long as this.
No,
Length-
like I said,
length
I
is
like
good.
some of the parts of it. Actually, I didn't go through the whole document, but I just like the beginning part. I thought it flew very nicely. And it
Yeah,
has stuff about prevailing wages, etc. So,
the tree and plant protection is really good, right? We're gonna have invasive species management, or what's it called, mitigation. And I guess we need to decide I think we should decide as a committee to include the invasive species mitigation piece in the bid, although it's not there now, because that is part of what we proposed to the conservation commissions, Southborough and Framingham. So we should probably include that in our specs.
did
Does-
go ahead.
I was just going to ask, does this have trail surface specification as well?
Yeah, it looks like it's
Where-
getting in now under trail construction. Can you guys
Okay.
see my?
Yeah, I'm following along on my own screen because that's kind of tiny.
No, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Just one quick aside question. The new crosswalk, the $15,000 one is not going to be a bid thing, right?
Correct, and it's not included in this.
Okay.
I do have some information on that, so if someone can remind me to kind of come back to that. Well, I'll just bring it up now. So Karen had responded, so we sent a thank you to the select board and DPW staff, and we copied Tim Davis, and we said thank you and sent it to Karen as a thank you for all that she's done for the Trails Committee and all that DPW has done over the years. And she replied and noted that she had, I'm just gonna pull something up, but
I didn't
I
see any
Karen's-
reply. Did she just reply to you?
think so.
What's Karen's last name?
Galligan.
Galligan.
Oh, okay. All right.
Oh, she copied Chris Leroy, who's the kind of, I'll say chief of staff, I don't know his position, but he's right underneath Karen. He oversees a lot of the projects, and Gregory Russell from VHB, who's a consultant the town contracts with for these types, and who I spoke with about this project on a number of pieces, but specifically the crosswalks. And she said, keep Chris. Oh, so I guess the new superintendent's name is Phil. So it says, keep Chris in the loop, and Phil, when Phil comes between you, Chris and Greg, the work will still move forward. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to talk to you about the crosswalk, but I have reservations about putting crosswalks on a main road with no sidewalks or any indication to a driver that they may encounter a pedestrian. Greg should be able to help get some devices located appropriately and a sequence together that will get crossing safely in place. So it looks like we just have a little bit of additional, and that makes sense because that road is very busy. And it's if you're not expecting a crosswalk, it would be you would need a little additional reinforcement.
And I know maybe we should table the crosswalk when this is all done, so we'll have time to dedicate to that.
Right, that's fine. I heard from Sam Stivers that at least as of yesterday, the Phil guy that's going to be the new head of DPW had not accepted the position yet.
Interesting. Do you have a date on when?
No, he did not. He did not say a date. He just said it wasn't accepted as of yesterday morning.
Okay. Okay, so this will be interesting timeline wise. And as far as I think the question was to table it completely until this, maybe till the bid is done, but I think we should try to move some of these projects in parallel. Just so they're not sequential, but we can at least move the needle a little bit. So something about this proposal that we should talk about is the level of detail here, right? So they have trail grades, surface water control, trail construction and flat terrain. I mean, they have excavating and cutting the back slope, outslope, but you know, that's a lot of detail that I'm not sure we need to include in our proposal, because what we're looking for is a contractor who will do all this stuff, provide this level of expertise. And I think we can be fairly generic by saying the contractor needs to have the correct expertise to blah, 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 right?
Yeah, because their specifications is to be the expert in this. Like you said, in the specifications is the very first thing. I agree with you. Now,
I don't know. I'm just concerned that we wouldn't necessarily know what the trail is going to look like until we saw it.
well, we did see it. I wish we all were together to take a look at that trail. So we have a little bit of a switchback going down to the boardwalk. We have the boardwalk across the bog. And then we have flat surface again, getting to the approach of the bridge itself. So there's not a terrible long, it's gonna be a little bit of a switchback because of the grade. I don't know what plans everybody has this weekend, but might be something worthwhile so we can all visualize it a little bit better.
Yeah. Yep, we could do that I'm busy on Saturday, but Sunday might be open. So does everyone see Google Earth?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so I'm gonna back up for a minute. Right, and here's the dam, and we've all been to this section where the trail ends right here. And
Right.
so basically you continue on and you're gonna cross over up here, right? I'm coming in. And then let me just get my bearings. Okay, the trail kind of is gonna, people will either, if they keep this pavement, they're probably gonna go down this pavement. I'm not suggesting that we put a trail across this grass, like people are gonna just have to know to cross the grass, right? They're gonna continue to maintain and mow this grass. So we're gonna have to have clear enough signage to get them across this way. And I think the most direct way to avoid this little intersection here goes to the facility, and they want to keep people away from the facility. So the trail will go something like this into here, okay? This is a maintained little space that they mow. So it comes through here. We would have signage for all of that. And it's about right here where the trail is gonna go off road, right? So normally people right now would go onto Route 30 and walk across here to get to that little trail that we've put in here. But in this case, they're going to come through this clearing, come to the woods, and there's an angle, right? So there's just the right spot where we're going to start building the first natural earth trail here. And this area is wetlands, right? So we're going to put the boardwalk as close to Route 30 as we can to minimize the span of the boardwalk, but outside of the jurisdiction of Mass DOT, which I believe we talked about this, Tom, at one
Yeah,
point.
it's 20 feet from the center line.
20 feet off of the center line. So we don't want to be on DOT's property. It's going to go across here. Then you have another natural surface trail on an open field, which is what that's referring to. And you go across here. Now there is a gas line here, so there's going to be some dig safe issues or contacts. And then in here, this is where we need bog bridges because there is some overflow. The water kind of can get high. So we're going to put a couple bog bridges in here. And I'm going to pull out a little bit. I believe this is the water, right? So you see a little cut here. So this is where we're going to put a couple bog bridges, and then the bridge will expand here and the connect to
Hey,
the,
Catherine, do the person in the bottom right, put the street view. Yeah, put your guy right over there. Yeah, see if that'd be better.
Well, it's,
Yeah,
Sort
I
of.
mean,
so
Alright.
we're trying to find the bridge. I'm trying
the-
to find where the bridge is.
The
Yeah,
bridge
so
is going to be parallel to the street bridge there, right?
Yeah,
yes.
pretty much.
And so the boardwalk is going to come out here, right? In some way, we're going to have to build our natural surface trail along here.
Yeah.
Through these little woods. They're not really woods. They're just big trees right now. And then, yeah, so this is the water. The bridge is
Yeah.
going to go right across here.
Yeah, that's a
And the
good picture.
trail, the Bay Circuit Trail is on the other side here.
Yep.
And then you're going to see this beautiful double arch bridge that no one gets to see. That was built in the late 1890s.
So where is the switchback going to be?
I thought-
When you were talking switchback, Tom, is that the
Go
first?
back to your other view, if you don't mind.
Do I have to-
Just hit the X on the top right.
oh, thank you.
Now, the switchback, I thought, you're right there, where the dots are. When you go into the woods there, I thought we didn't want it, we don't need a switchback, but to keep it the elevation, the slope as low as possible.
It's not, yeah, so a switchback you think of as zigzag.
Right,
This is more of a gradual but angled trail. For
yeah,
your for purposes of what Tom is saying, it's kind of to reduce slope. It's an angled, it's not going, you're not going straight into the woods here. You're going to go at an angle
Yeah.
to.
Yeah. Because I do remember talking about a switchback, but maybe we start a little bit further up to the left, and then it's a nice gradual down decline to the boardwalk.
So
And
this
then-
is the-
As long as we're avoiding any erosion problems, right?
That's why we're doing
We're
it
trying
that
to minimize erosion, right?
Okay.
Or you mean, say that again now?
If we dig into the dirt to smooth something out, we are opening up a potential erosion spot.
Right. So that's part of the, what we'd like to say is making sure we're minimizing erosion. I think I actually wrote that in there. So is that clear right now? Do people have at least an idea, visual of what it will look like before we do a site visit?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit unclear about making certain that these people walking on the trail know to follow that the correct path.
Well,
In
that's going to be
Place where it's just grass.
yeah, and that's, it's a challenge, just like it is a challenge right now on the Sudbury Reservoir Trail between Middle Road and Parkerville. When you get off the trail and you're like, wait, I'm in a field, And so we added some signage that yes, you're on the trail, or and you just follow the line. It is,
Okay.
but okay. So I'm going to now bring up our bid. I think. Okay. You guys seeing this now?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, great. Okay, so we're using the 3-page template that Tim Davis provided from Recreation. And so this cover page is just mimicking what he had. And to your point, Will, I call this an invitation for bid because in the next page, I'll show you, they reference an IFB, right? So we're going to call it an invitation for bid now. And if that needs to change, someone, either Tim or Melanie, who reviews this before it goes final, will be correcting us on that. And then it's not listed here, but I put a bid number because it's a nice identifying mark. So I just added the year and it's our first bid, 01.
Okay.
Okay. I also added this upfront stuff, like it's buried on page 1, the submission deadline and all that information, but I like to put it up front. So I just kind of inserted, here's the deadline, here's the primary contact and email. So No searching needed. It's right there in your face. So I'm open to feedback and thoughts on how this goes.
So are we going to pick a date for, I mean, there's going to be a site visit that we host and also a questions, or will questions come in written form and emails or whatever?
Yeah, so we should have I don't think that's listed here, a question date. Oh, no, it says deadline for pre-bid questions to be submitted and deadline for bid submission and public bid opening. Okay,
We should definitely put what Warren said, a time, and a date for a site visit.
oh, we have it here.
Okay,
Okay,
So,
yeah, okay,
so keep notes so that we're making sure we're capturing what we need. That we're not just overlooking. Need to get something. Okay. So this first part is there's instructions given. Oh, there's two of these. This is all from the standard template. Oops, I don't like it. So this isn't really changeable, but I did ask some questions about it. So bids are due on, we need to come up with a date and time, which we'll do later. We're not quite ready for that. Bids must be properly signed. That's fine. Sealed and and all bids shall include 3 original sets of documents. Now, I see this a lot with state contracts. It's so awful because it's kind of an outdated. We're usually asking people to submit electronically now. So I asked him if we needed this 3 bid thing, and he said you do need at least 1. So we have some wiggle room. They don't have to send in 3, but we definitely need 1 original set hard copy. And then this next one is just the bidder, some information about what they need to sign and stuff. The 5th one, a bid deposit of 5% of the total bid price is required as bid security, and the selected bidder will be required to post a payment bond in the amount of 100% of the total bid price, and post a performance bond in the amount of 100% of the total bid price upon entering contract for the project. That just sounds like an awful requirement. It is a state law and it is required. So I pushed back and said, Tim, is there any way we can get around this? Do we really have to do this for this project? Like, what size project requires? And he said, we do have to do this. So, you know, those who bid for the state apparently know that stuff. So, and Bella, for your purposes, you could just say the Trails Committee reviewed the instructions for bidders in this section. Like, you don't have to detail everything we say.
Okay, thank you.
If we have to make decisions and stuff, you might want to note those. So if that's helpful. And then good faith and tax compliance form, and then all this other stuff. So I'm not going to go read everything. We need to do this stuff. I'm going to highlight in yellow what we need to do. And then blah, blah, blah. And then contract will be awarded. Okay, and so bid schedule here, this is where the date the bid is available. And we have to advertise it in the newspaper, website, and central registry. It did say Combis, and I did confirm with Tim that, Will, you may remember this, Combis is not, we are not required to post in Combis. Combis is a statewide contracting site that the state uses to procure services. We are going to use Central Register, which is maintained by the AG's office.
okay. So we'll put our documents there,
That's where that will be the formal posting. The state
and then we also have to do the newspaper notification.
and the website. Yeah, so we need to do the legal notice, and that was the one that Tim sent us an example of, that little simple.
Isn't this printed? It has to be printed in the newspaper, I think, doesn't it?
I think so. A legal notice in a paper. Yep.
Yeah.
So then we need to come up with a deadline for the questions, pre-bid questions, and a deadline for the bid submission.
And also the site visit, whatever.
Yes, and the site
Okay.
visit, but that's listed down here. We might want to, I like to have the idea of having it up here.
And okay, I guess later we'll talk about the a schedule for getting the completion, right?
The
What-
project completion. Is that
Yeah.
what you're-
Yeah.
All right, so I understand it went to the other page. I'll fix that later, just for
I
now.
I read this and I think you said that it has to be started in 2023, but not necessarily finished.
Right, and I used, so there was a couple of so we reached out to Priscilla Ryder of Marlboro, and she's done public bids before, not on trails, but she sent some she had. And so combination of all of the bid samples that I found plus hers, we kind of pulled together various pieces. And that completion language, Will, was something another bid had referenced, and I liked it because ideally, and unless the committee's in disagreement, it would be great if we could get this project done in 2023. But obviously, we can't control bid timeline, supply chain issues, bids not coming back within budget, and those types of things. So, you know, with a 2024 expectation, I believe, I can't remember exactly when our ARPA money needs to be spent by, but I don't think it's 2024.
No,
Hey,
I think that's 3 years or something.
Yeah. Hey, Catherine, this whole part of the trails, do we still need the MOA for it? Or is that outside of that MOA that we're waiting for the other part? I'm just curious.
No, so that's a good question. The MOA, so this project is on MWRA's jurisdiction. It's on their
Okay.
property. I think DCR might want to be included in the know on it, but it's technically covered under the 8M permit that we already have in place. With
Okay, like I said, I was just curious on that.
Oh, these are all great questions. Okay, so we might not have had an opportunity because I was late in getting this to us to kind of review, but maybe tonight what we can do is kind of talk about our sections that we have here, the core information we want to include, and not worry about wordsmithing it tonight, but what we'll do is get the format set up in the way that we think it should, and then we can add some beef to it during the week without breaking open meeting law, and then come back next week and really kind of finalize our wordsmithing. And that gives Sati an opportunity to chime in over the week because he's not here tonight. Does that sound like a good plan of attack?
Mhm.
Okay, so this first blurb is just simply, you know, we're seeking a qualified contractor to help with X, Y, and Z. This is where it's located. So just a little brief thing. And then the next one about the project is a little bit more detail, focusing first on the components of this project. But the second paragraph says, when the entire project is complete, the trail will include. So I thought it was important, and I'd like to hear your feedback on, you know, we give them a sliver of the project, but in the whole scope, I'd like them to understand that it's part of a bigger piece, right? And so in the end, this is what it will be. Any feedback or thoughts on that?
No, this is about the portal. Yeah, that's
No,
fine.
I mean, and what's included is the signage, any type of trail construction we want them to do, the bridge and the how many bog bridges? That's another part, right?
Yeah, so I'll just quickly recap this. The primary scope of this bid, and please fill me in if I'm missing something. So we're seeking a qualified and insured contractor to build a natural surface hiking trail and install an ADA compliant footbridge, boardwalk, and bog bridges on a parcel owned by Massachusetts Water Resources Authority, located across from 251 Boston Post Road with some coordinates.
Is the signage included?
No, we're doing the signage separate.
I thought signage was something that we had discussed with Mark as being included, but
We're doing signage for Under Mass Trails grant.
okay, as long as, you know, Mark doesn't think we're bid splitting, right?
No, we're not bids.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, because we were very clear about what pieces were going in Mass Trails versus what's here. Yeah, it's just, it happens to be that they're different project components. There's no advantage to us to.
I don't know. I was going back over that meeting and I was a little bit unclear to me. I'll look at it again, but unclear to me as to whether or not he thought signage was included in this as well.
Well, I will say that, you know, he has seen the grant agreement and, you know, we talked about the project scope before. So I'm not that concerned because we're not doing anything wrong.
Okay.
So this next like I said, this paragraph, this first one's a little repetitive, but I think it's fine because it's talking about the whole scope. And then the second one brings it home and we talk about the larger piece. I end with, we've secured MWRA's permission to conduct this work through an 8M public access permit. I think that's important for them to know that we have permission to work on the land and we already have a permit in place. Okay. So then if you think about, like, if you're a contractor, you're reading this bid, the flow of this, we want to make sure we're giving them relevant information and not too much miscellaneous stuff. And we're doing it in an orderly way that makes sense to them, right? So project description, the STC is soliciting bids for the following work. So this is where we need to think about how we're presenting this information. And this is where, when we send it to Tim Davis, he can probably provide us a little bit of feedback on how much detail we need to provide here. So the work includes, but it's not limited to, the design and build of a section of trail that will include the following components. And Will, is this helpful that I'm reading it?
Yeah.
Okay. So one, we want to build approximately 110 foot by 4 foot wide natural earth surface trail through a wooded area. Procure and install an ADA compliant 75 foot long by 6 foot wide fiberglass boardwalk that will extend over a wetland adjacent to Route 30. And then sub bullets being for the boardwalk include fiberglass grating molded panels to create an anti-skid surface, include helical piers or Tommy docks to minimize impacts on the wetlands, includes cost associated with the physical engineer stamped drawings, engineering site assessment and plan review of bridge, and local permitting costs for Southborough and Framingham. So those sub bullets are related specifically to the boardwalk.
I guess I'm a little unclear as to, we're asking them to bid the cost of the engineer. Are they supposed to complete the engineering before they tell us how much the rest is going to cost?
When I use engineering site assessment and plan review of the bridge, when I spoke with VHB Consulting, they basically have to come out. They have to review the plans to make sure they're stamped in good plans. They have to review the site visit. They have to visit the site and ensure that the proposed bridge is satisfactory, right? Whatever they do there, and then so that would be their engineering site assessment. So
who's going to, you mentioned they're going to review the stamped plans.
Mhm.
When will the stamped plans be done? Are they done before we issue the bid?
No, because that's going to be the contractor's job to find this, to find. So for example, we'll just use what we have as a quote from this vendor provided a quote for a PE stamped drawings. The bridge comes as a kit. The boardwalk comes as a kit, and the plans are already stamped, right?
Okay, so you're saying the stamped plans already exist.
For example, in this example, those stamped plans come with the kit, the bridge that is a kit, right?
Think of a prefab house.
No, I understand.
You
Are we
don't
telling
need-
them? Are we telling them exactly which kit to buy then?
No, we're telling them we need everything to be included, including the stamp plan. So if they go out and figure out how to do this without buying a kit, then good for them. But it has to be all encompassing, right? We're trying to give them as much detail of, like, it's got to come with stamp. You got to have the drawings. You got to have an engineer assessment. You got to review the bridge, all of that, and the permitting cost. All of those details are included in this quote. Like, you need to be responsible for it, Mr. Contractor, or Mrs. Contractor, go out and do.
Well, I'm just leery of it. It sort of seems like we've got the cart well before the horse there. The horse being having some stamped plans that the contractor can bid against.
No,
And this is why I ask Tim Davis the question I ask about. He's paying $35,000 for engineering plans before he goes out to bid for just doing accessibility for recreational areas, which doesn't include bridges. And, he's going to get it down to drawings that then people can bid against. And we're not doing that. We're basically saying we want you to do the plans in addition to then bidding what it's going to be.
We want you to find the engineering firm that's gonna do the plans and.
But if the
And they-
engineering firm comes back and says, hey, by the way, there's flooding problems we hear, and your bridge is going to have to be longer or higher or something. You know, how would someone bid that if they haven't gotten that work done yet?
I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, my suggestion would be, you know, maybe it's so cut and dried. That's one thing. And if everybody assures me that it is, that's fine. But, you know, one other suggestion would be to say, let's get engineering documents done before the bid.
So if I understand you, Wade, for the bridge, you actually want us to go out to an engineer, an architect, and design it to.
Well, he
No, no,
doesn't-
you're saying you want engineers to go to a spec. This has to be approved and stamped and accepted by the state and the town, and then we go out to bid.
I'm saying that, I'm saying that this is what Tim is doing, you know, for his project. And, you know, even though his project arguably is less complex than ours, because he's not building a, you know, a bridge over a stream, as far as I know. So, you know, what I'm saying is that if we took the engineering piece out, then when we went to bid, we'd know we'd have drawings down to a sufficient level of detail that the contractors could be very clear about exactly what they're doing. This seems to leave it kind of very open, and I'd be concerned that the contractors are going to say, well, I'm going to come in with a pretty high bid because I'm not sure what I'm going to run into.
Right. So one thing is, we spoke with a contractor in advance to talk about the process, talk about the bridge kit, talk about what we needed outside of that. So it might not be as cut and dry as we're describing it, and we might run into problems, but I would like to put this in front of Tim and another to look at it and see if we can actually do it this way, rather than, you know, going to an engineering firm, getting all of that done, and then putting it out there. I'd like to see if we can accomplish moving forward in this way. And if it brings forth issues, then maybe we can flush those out ahead of time.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, if it turns out that it's so cut and dried, that's fine. But you know, if it turns out that this is going to leave a significant amount of uncertainty that might result in higher bids than we would be comfortable or would otherwise want to pay, right? Because if they bid something, these are fixed price bids we're asking on, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so if it ends up not being as complicated as they feared, they're going to pocket that extra money.
Yeah, that's their risk and
It
reward.
comes in within budget. Yeah, I mean.
Okay,
That's how general contractors make money.
Yeah.
They take the liability, they take the risk. If there's overtures, overruns, they absorb those costs.
yeah, I understand, but you know, I guess the other danger here is that someone's going to come back and say, well, you know, I'm going to put together this bridge, and I claim that it meets your requirements, and we would basically have nothing to argue against that if they say, you know, I think that this meets your requirements, and so that's what I'm.
They have an, if they
If they have an engineer that signed off on that, that's
Yeah.
the QC will, right? That engineering firm isn't gonna put their name on it if it doesn't pass qualification specs.
that's liability on the engineering firm.
Okay,
thing
I
would be-
mean, if that flies, that's fine. Yep. I mean, as long as yes, there is an engineering firm involved that we could, you know, presumably go back and attach liability to if you know, if the thing falls down or if it, you know, there's a flood and it floats away, you know, as long as we can go and get them to fix it, that'd be great.
Yeah, and I think, you know, the contractor has to, maybe we actually have to put the provide certificate of insurance type stuff. I don't know if that, I've seen bids where you have to have a COI ahead of time. So we might need to include that language here to include the certificate of insurance. And yeah, so that's why, so part of the reason of why we're including engineer site assessment and things like that is that that has to happen. That's not, a contractor can't come in and do this project without any of that happening. There's laws in place that require that. So whatever detail we need to include here to ensure that, that's what we're trying to accomplish by saying some of this. So I am
Okay.
noting COI because I need to know where.
Yeah, and number 5 is really the most, all the conversation is about the actual bridge across the river.
Well,
All the other ones, if you think about it, it's really a bog bridge with Tommy locks or helical piers, whatever it is to minimize it. And that's the very simple part. You see those things all over the place. It's the one I think, Will, you were talking about is number 5, the actual bridge across an actual river. This is, the other 2 is so your feet don't get wet.
right.
It needs to be sure that it's safe as well, right? So it's going to have some.
I think we might want to, I mean, I think we have we do have an objective for the bog bridges and the walkways in addition to the bridge as far as low maintenance cost, right?
Yes, that's the whole.
Okay.
Spec.
Just the bog bridges we have here are just pressure treated wood bog bridges, right?
Yeah.
Like this is that thing you see in the forest that has 2 boards, one, you know, and it's just like a 2-laner, like you just walk, straddle 2 boards.
Okay, if
It's not
that's
highly
fine, that's fine.
Yeah, if you go to the trail off of Route 85 by the Mass Pike, the beginning part of that is probably very similar to that 8 to 10 feet.
We talking about the town forest there?
No, by the
You guys
pike
see
on
this?
85,
You see
like
this?
something like that. That 8
Okay.
to 10 feet, we're just talking about getting your feet out of the mud.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
And one question I do have, so that wasn't supposed to be fiberglass and we didn't quote it as fiberglass, so that's why I put long, like pressure treated wood here. The question I have is, and I put this in a comment, is does we want this stuff to be ADA compliant? I don't even know if a bog bridge can be ADA compliant because of its nature. So I need to understand that a little bit more so that we're consistent and we're not putting in ADA compliant bridge and a boardwalk and then a non-ADA compliant bog bridge when there was an opportunity to do better. So that,
Right, to make it ADA compliant, I would think you would need a hand railing on one side.
Yeah, you might, and it also has to have a certain amount of width, which that
Correct.
picture that you just showed was not a sufficient width.
exactly. So that's a question we have that we have to answer.
Well, that's why I sent out, the Forest Service guide and and their updated guidelines, because those might have pictures or might have suggestions as to what would be suitable. But the problem is that if you get into a big bog bridge and try to make it ADA compliant, you're also increasing its footprint, right? And I think that making the walkway and the bridge compliant is one thing, which is good and laudable, but I think we probably need to keep the ADA compliance part as small as possible.
Well, so this is where I'd want an expert to weigh in and let us know, because if it were to cost a little bit more and we have the funds now to make that bog bridge compatible, when everything surrounding it is compatible and our objective long-term is to make as much of our trails accessible as possible, like there might be an opportunity here in the years to come that we broaden the accessibility and then it gets to be a longer accessible trail, right? So that's all I'm saying is if we're going to invest some money, let's just kind of get some expert, but I hear you completely, not looking to overdo it, but also not wanting to fall short of a near term, something that might be low money.
Right. I guess the other issue though is that you also need to make certain that any earthen trail that you're putting in, if you are thinking that you want it to be ADA compliant, is that going to hold up in wet season Or is that going to become rutted and impassable to wheelchairs and things like that?
Very good point, and we addressed that below. In addition to your guides that you provided, I have a list of resources, and I added those to that list. So,
Okay,
and just to rehash, or just to make sure we're all on the same page, the boardwalk is on water and we need to make sure an engineer makes sure that people can walk on that safely. Although the footbridge would have a higher consequence, I think, because it is crossing like,
A river.
a brook,
Well-
yeah, of course, yeah. So it's it's like running water versus standing water, I guess.
do we know how bad the flooding gets? I mean,
If you go there, the river, if it floods, Route 30 are flooding. I think we got more issues than anything else. And remember, it's coming.
FWA controls the flow of that brook,
Right.
and they
Okay.
said that they could manage the flow in whatever way it needs to be. But I have read in one of these quotes that someone included should survive 100-year flood. So I don't know if we actually want to get that detailed. I kind of feel like, that's a question for us. And everything we build and spend money on should be sustainable for a long period of time. I don't know what the right answer to that is just yet, but I've flagged it for a question mark.
well, there's a difference between it will survive the flood, but while the flood is flooding, you can't walk on it, and it will survive the flood, and during the flood, you can walk on it, right? Those are two completely different things.
So that was it for scope, aside, and I guess
Just one last thing, number 4. If
Yeah.
we're doing number 2 to be ADA compliant, number 4 has to be the same verbiage. Just because
Well,
otherwise you
that's
can't go any
fine.
further. I mean.
that's what I just said.
Oh, okay,
That's the wood bog bridges, right? So I put a note over here, not sure bog bridges can be ADA compliant, but if they can, they should be, right? And so that's what we need a little bit of expert advice on that.
right. And if they cannot be, then we back off number 2 to be ADA compliant.
The boardwalk,
And
No, yeah, because you remember, you're going from an earth trail to number 2,
it's
number
federally
2,
funded dollars, they have to be ADA.
but number
compliant.
2 goes to number 4. And if 4 is not ADA, you can't go to number 5.
No. Number 2 and number 5, boardwalk and footbridge have to be ADA compliant because it's federally funded dollars. I'm not sure that applies to a bog bridge, which is 2 pieces of wood on the ground to keep you
I'm
off
just
the water.
saying, you can't get to number 5. You can't go from 2 to 5 without going past number 4.
So do you want me to take it out of order?
I'm just saying, you cannot go from number 2 to number 5. Physically, you cannot go from where that, number 2's boardwalk
Yeah.
to number 5 bridge over the river.
Yeah.
Unless you go through, now you moved it around, number 5. Number
Yeah.
5 is in between the 2.
I know,
yeah,
that's why I had it there.
but
like it.
Kat, you're sort of implying we're going to write 2 checks. One's going to be a federally funded check, and the other is going to be a non-federally funded check.
No,
Nope. Okay.
going off of what the consultant that we spoke with
No. Okay.
confirmed,
All right.
that both the bridge and the boardwalk, because of it's a substantial structure.
Oh, okay. Good point.
It's a
Very good
substantial
point.
structure versus a bog bridge, which is 2 pieces of wood on the ground that you walk across so you don't get your
Mm.
feet wet. and that-
So you're saying there's a clear difference between the walkway and the bridge and the bog bridge.
It is, but
Yes. Okay. That's fine.
still a question of does the bog bridge maybe?
I think you have to move closer to your laptop again. You're breaking up. You're breaking up. Is it just me?
No,
Breaking up is hard to do, Kat. You're doing it.
is that any better?
That's
Yep.
much better.
Okay, so yeah, I even changed my USB output, output so that I could tell if that was the problem, but it sounds like it doesn't like meetings to go over an hour.
It's a
It-
good thing.
It may be your cats. Maybe the cats.
Yeah, so
Always blame the cats.
I have flagged it here. We'll have to answer this question about whether a bog bridge can be ADA and whether it should be. And in fact, we won't have to rehash. Okay.
Okay,
I did
Okay.
include for the bog bridge, include surface prep to maximize safety, meaning I've seen bog bridges with notches in them because you know how wood gets slippery when wet. or moldy if the sun, if it's in the woods. So there are strategies that you can take to, kind of create a rough surface so that it's not as slippery. So I've added that detail. And then the last one is the ADA compliant 65-foot by 6-foot wide fiberglass footbridge. Includes costs associated with the stamp drawings, footings, engineering site assessment and plan a review of bridge, and local permitting. So those line items are kind of the same as.
Okay.
Okay. So is there any other scope that we should be including or details that we think we should include under this scope?
I guess, we can't really specify the location of the beginning and end of the trail we're asking them to build, or can we?
Well, so what I did here, it's a good question. In the very top here, I included coordinates because it came from the Mass Trails grant. And I think what will solve that problem for them, Will, is the site visit.
Okay, and then
Right.
the other spec would just be the angle. What is it? What do they call it? The rise, the angle, the steepness, the slope of the bridge approaches, right?
So would the ADA compliant word mean you have to address that slope? Because that is what helps that be ADA compliant. They would have to, by definition, address
Okay.
this.
No,
Does
that'd
that
be
answer that
fine.
question?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not arguing. I'm just saying, I'm hoping that some of our language that we use will minimize every detail that we might have to exact out of this, right? By saying ADA compliant, everything associated with that should be done with that bridge.
So the bridge, did we specify the width of the bridge?
6 foot.
Mhm.
Okay,
And that was a recommendation by the consultant that we met.
okay.
And I'm just curious, so we say 75 foot or 65. I think we should say approximately.
Yes.
Well, that, I think approximately, but I think we might want to say that the actual bridge will be this, and the approaches will be that, and the total will be 75 feet.
I don't want to do that because I don't know the
No,
approaches. I don't
we
know how to
don't-
measure that. I mean, I'm just being honest, Will. Like, yes, those things need to be known, but we need a contractor who knows what they're doing to tell us so that we don't have to become experts. We've already, you know what I mean? Like, we're not experts in knowing the approach and knowing We're looking for qualified contractors to help us understand that.
Well, why don't we just say the bridge length, including approaches, will be approximately 75 feet.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, that's fine.
So if he wants to make that bridge 7,500 feet and have a gigantic ADA compliant spiral, that'll be fine.
All right, where do I put?
Be very dramatic.
I think it's number 5, procure and install an ADA compliant approximately 65 with
I don't know.
fiberglass footbridge, including, what was that word you used? Including
Approaches.
approaches over Stony Brook. Let's
Right.
mention the brook.
The raging, often flooded Stony Brook.
Okay. I might check on how that reads because I don't know.
Yeah, I know. I mean, we'll do the wordsmithing and spell check and all that stuff later.
Okay. All right, so that's good. That's a good suggestion. What else? Anything? So I think let's go through a little more because I do get into the something you mentioned, the natural surface, making sure the erosion is handled and some other stuff. So we'll see if it needs to be moved up or added additional, how it needs to be.
I just remember that some of the projects that we were looking at, Kat, erosion turned out to be a big deal for them, right?
Mhm.
And
Water is the enemy of a trail, for sure.
right. And so, especially around the approaches to the bridge, you want to make sure, and also any switchbacks, you want to make sure that they're going to handle or
Yep.
prevent erosion, right?
Yep. So wait for it, but see if I need to move it up. So additional project requirements. This is a section just to kind of put some random stuff. Duties and responsibilities of the contractor and its employees or subcontractors should possess the necessary experience and skills to complete the project and meet or exceed industry standards. Contractor will provide progress updates on a regular basis. And here I flagged what kind of progress reports or how do we describe the type of relationship we want with the contractors? Like, we want to be heavily involved. So do we want bi-weekly updates or, weekly updates, or what do you guys think? And I think bi-weekly might be okay, and monthly it depends on what's going on, right?
Bi-weekly is good, and I would put something in several joint on-site status updates. I don't know how to, that's bad
Yeah,
wordsmithing, but it's
No, you're
basically,
right, but
we
with
want to
site-
be site visit with the project manager. I know we could say that better, but
Yeah, with
bi-weekly-
site visits with project managers for major milestones or something,
yeah,
and that can be left up. Major milestone would be like you're deciding when the footings or something.
yeah, yep.
You got any thoughts, Will? To your thinking.
No, I think I'm fine.
And then something I read in another one was STC reserves the right to remove the contractor from the project for,
For any reason, I don't want to offend it for any reason the trail that STT deserves. I mean, I don't think we could say exactly what, because that opens up a definition, a legal definition at our
for,
discussion.
failure to meet project requirements or something like that, right? Like,
Yeah.
we'll find some right words for it, but I think we want to be careful, like, not for any random reason. We can't just be for not unreasonable. Like, there's
What about moral turpitude?
Yeah, there you go.
okay, so we'll figure that out, but something like that. So then we have contractor agrees to coordinate with STC and MWRA. So this is where I wanted to say, I put some X's here because I'm not quite sure what to say, is that they have to coordinate with both entities, right? So this is MWRA's property. MWRA is going to have to be involved in doing some approvals and things like that. So
Do they have to interact with MWRA?
it's a good question. I think they're going to have to, yes.
So do we have any idea as to how many times? Because interacting with MWRA takes time.
Right, so that's a good question, and I think I should reach out to MWRA and see if I can't, because we're gonna have like a kickoff call. You can imagine we would have a kickoff with MWRA, the contractor, and us and REC, similar to what we're gonna do on the Mass Trail side. So then we all talk and we're all on the same page. We're gonna have like a detailed schedule, an outline, and then a communication, a process for communicating. And so they're going to have a contact at MWRA and not go through us each time, because that's going to be difficult. So I think the contacts that they would put them in touch with would be more of the operations side, right? Who are used to working with contractors and on the ground. So I don't know that it will be difficult for them to get feedback. Do you know what I mean?
Yep. I mean, this is one of those times when your voice sounds like all the drinking and smoking that you've done. So anyway,
I'm glad.
your mic is getting a little bit scratchy there.
Is that any better?
Yes,
Yep.
much better.
What do you do when you say it gets better to what you were just
I do
doing?
nothing. I just move closer and I hope for the best.
Moving
okay.
closer works. That's good.
Every time.
Yeah.
I do nothing.
But I got what you meant, but we put in language to contract agrees to coordinate directly with MWRA for milestones, approvals, and schedules.
Does MWRA want to come out and inspect anything, or is this
Oh,
just?
yeah. I think there will be some MWRA.
Well, then we need to say inspections as well.
I'm gonna put MWRA STC inspections. Shoot.
There you go.
And we need to be kept in the loop.
Well, we have that in the bi-weekly updates we just
Yeah,
went
but I'm
through.
thinking I need to be copied on some stuff. So I need to figure out what is reasonable for for, to being CC'd on emails and such, because
Oh,
I
no,
don't
just put it in there, and STT will be included with all communications to MWRA.
I'll communicate, all project
All-
communications
All communications,
to anybody.
all
like,
project communications.
related to, yeah.
Yep.
So I might check with Tim. He's worked with a lot of contractors. We don't want to micromanage, but we have to stay in the know, and we need to be on top of things that might go awry. What's so funny?
Yep.
Oh, I was just thinking about talking about, being in contact with the contractors, was that that problem that was had by a town versus putting in light poles. And the idea that the vendor had that the volunteers were going to put the light poles in. That's yeah, we definitely want to be in close communication with them.
So I've added just some junk language here. I'll clean it up. Contractors should prioritize materials that have long life cycles and that minimize ongoing maintenance. That's a little vague, but our fiberglass boardwalk, the reason in the fiberglass bridge we're saying fiberglass is because of the long life cycle. I don't think we need to put like a number on it.
Nope, that's a good statement. I like it.
It's borrowed.
So we're looking for no paint and no replacement of pieces, and we don't want them to break when people are stomping across it.
Right, minimize that. I mean, obviously these things are going to happen, but we want to.
So we want to minimize maintenance caused by weather, or use. Right.
I mean, that's kind of wordy, but I like how Catherine has it. Just prioritize materials that have long life cycles.
Okay.
Contractors should prioritize the use of sustainable and responsible products. We get into Buy America down below. And responsible is subjective. So we need to think about, it might be a question we ask, like, what is a responsible product? Everyone's going to define that differently. Is it important here or not? What happened? There might be a better way to.
Well, sustainable is a slippery word as well.
Yeah. So yeah, we need to kind of think about how we want to phrase that. And then to your point, Will, natural earth surface trails should include trail surface aggregate to withstand traffic, reduce erosion and reduce erosion and maintenance.
Yep.
Okay.
And also growing of plants or whatever, but maybe that's covered by maintenance.
Yeah, I was thinking that too, Will. And I think because that's what got me on this trail is like, I didn't mean to say that, but that's funny. Is that I didn't want to have to weed it, but I think this will withstand the weeding too as a result. Like if you put in like stone dust and in your gravel, and people are walking on it, it's gonna reduce weeding. But I might think about putting something in here for weeding, because that was the point that got me on this, is that we're looking for trails that don't require a lot of that type of maintenance. So good point.
Yeah,
Okay.
I looked at the Forest Service guideline and it just said it has to be smooth and stable. Right.
Gotcha. Okay. Project timeline, the trail installation should be completed in 2023. Extensions for project completion in 2024 will be considered so long as the trail installation can commence in 2023. Does that
Mhm.
sound? Okay.
Okay.
Bid site visit. So I want to think about the order. Should the site visit?
The site visit should come before questions.
Okay. And we don't talk.
Yeah, because a lot of the questions could be answered by the site visit.
And also the site visit might cause you to have some more questions, right?
Well, so do we do the bid? Do we do the Q&A before the site visit? No,
I think you do the Q&A after the site visit.
I think we're gonna have to do Q&A after, because they're gonna go to the site, they're gonna look, and then they're gonna ask themselves some questions. So I think you're right. So let's do this as bid, site visit, and Q&A, and just merge the section into one.
But they are two separate activities or
Yes.
events. Okay.
Q&A deadline.
And, of course, I guess it goes without saying, but all of the answers that we give for questions will be shared with everyone.
Oh,
Mhm.
yes, of course. How
Questions and answers.
Right, exactly, exactly.
I guess they'll have to be emailed to everyone
Yes.
in
I mean,
a
that's
batch format.
when I used to bid on things like this, it was always an interesting input to see what other people were asking questions about.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's helpful too.
Right.
Okay, so I wrote a mandatory site visit will be held on XX date from this time and insert the time for the purpose of viewing the trail location, asking questions, and to provide additional clarification about the project. If bidders cannot attend the site visit, please contact primary contact to arrange another time. Hopefully that doesn't.
No, you can't do, that's a one-off. I'm not sure if that.
I don't think you
last-
can do that. I think you have to do
Yeah.
the site visit as a group. And
Yeah,
You
I
You
think,
can't arrange another time because then it's only one person.
from a proposal from Marlboro, they did. They
Did they?
noted, yeah, because I think if you put a mandatory, and it doesn't work for someone because they're at a funeral or they're at a planned vacation or they have COVID, I mean, you have to have some flexibility. I would
Alright,
prefer not to do 5 times.
as,
so
as
I-
long as
Well,
as long as you don't verbally answer questions during the site visit that you didn't answer to the other group, right?
Or if you record those questions and just post them and share with the, right, what questions came up. So we'll have to have someone doing note taking while we're there so that someone's focused on answering and the other is recording.
Yep.
But I hear you, Will, and I like that approach, is making sure that everyone has the same information.
Why don't you put in there, all questions and answer proposed on the site visit will be recorded and shared with,
With the entire group or whatever.
yeah, I think you can put that above, it's all
will.
questions and answers proposed at the site visit.
Of course, if 1,000 different bidders want to bid on this, the site visit is going to be a little bit lengthy, I guess.
Well,
we-
what we could do is if it turns out that we have a ton of requests, then we do a second date, just like DCR did with their groups. They said, you can meet this date at this time. And if you can't, then you just wait 3 more months and you can do this date and this time. That's how that worked. So we could, if it looks like we're going to have a number of people that can't, then we'll do batches, 2 batches, right? Instead of individual meeting, because no one has the time for that. Does that work?
Well, yeah, because we're gonna find out if bidders cannot attend the site, please contact to arrange alternate time. It could be 1 or 2 bidders that can't make that time and they'll come together.
Yeah.
That's
Um,
fine.
by-
As long
by
as,
the-
as long as that's fine, what you have highlighted there, I'm okay with it. It's just that it seems a little strange, but if that's common, that's fine.
I don't know
by-
if it's common, but it was in one. Yes, Will.
By the way, have you gotten any feedback from Melanie Otsuko about how the ARPA, what rules or regulations ARPA is going to require us to follow? Because remember,
No.
Mark said specifically that ARPA does not recognize Massachusetts law.
Right, so if there was any procurement, special procurement processes that we had to follow for ARPA,
Yeah,
no. I'll reach out because I also have to reach out to Brian Valentine to talk to him about the Mass Trails reimbursable grant to see if we can use, because I think our idea is to use CPA funding, which has no strings attached to it. We can use CPA funding to pay for the project for the grant and then get reimbursed, right? And then that fills back up the CPA bucket. So we just can, if we can use the CPA bucket to do that reimbursable, to pay for the expenses and then get reimbursed, rather than involve ARPA money, we might be saving ourselves some headache.
is ARPA all reimbursement rather than?
No, ARPA is just straight cash, right? So we'll spend it like you would
Oh.
regular, like our budget. It's the Mass Trails grant that is reimbursable.
Okay, gotcha.
So we have to come up with the cash to pay for the fencing. And I'm gonna propose and talk to Brian to see if this is a good or a bad idea, that we use our CPA funding.
Bake
that.
sale.
I see where you're at now. Okay. All right. All right. So then one of these examples had this, the proposal should include what we want from the different proposals, right? So I don't exactly know what should go here, other than we want a, this is where I think we need to get detailed about, we need a cost estimate. And where do we put prevailing wages? Like, it seems like we need to put. Does
Where
that
do we
need
put
to
the,
go?
yeah, that doesn't belong there.
Right, so I have it highlighted in red on that reason. Does it need to go like under this additional project requirements?
Yeah, put it at the last one. Yeah, right before project timeline.
Right. And then the other thing, so let me just skip around just a bit because this is on the same topic. So we'll skip through here. So compliance with state and federal regulations. There are certain things in, oh, wait a minute. I'm confusing things a bit. Ooh, wait a minute. Interesting. So I merged the projects and I went into, I merged the buckets, Mass Trails versus ARPA, but I think we might be on the right track still though. This language by America has to happen. So the grant required Buy America certification because it was federal dollars. If ARPA is federal dollars, they're going to have to be Buy America too.
I would
need to find
imagine,
out.
yeah.
We need to find, that would be a Melanie question. So are we required to do Buy America with the ARPA funding? And if so, this is what this requirement says here. And then we know that the wetlands are involved. So this language came from the grant agreement, but it's very relevant here. So
Mhm.
we are going to require an NOI
Mhm.
likely from Framingham and Southborough. So I've got that here. And then
An
the other,
NOI from Framingham, what is that?
yeah, notice of
Notice of
intent
intent.
to get an order of conditions because we're working in the wetlands.
Oh,
So
okay.
because it's that's where the border is, that Stony Brook is where the Framingham Southborough border is, the town boundary. So
No
we have to,
kidding.
yeah, we have to work with both towns. And the unfortunate thing with Framingham is that their entire conservation commission just had a turnover. So everybody we were working with and we had established a relationship and we had some in-kind support for the permitting, they were going to waive. All those people are gone now. So we have to reestablish our relationship and go over there and say hi. So I think we still need to include the wetlands piece. So they need to understand that there's going to be this
Yep, yep.
requirement.
Yep.
And then Will, to your point, I had already had in here, based off of another proposal, we already had the U.S. Forest Service Trail Construction Maintenance Notebook link. And then I added the accessibility link that you shared. There's also some other links here. Now, this gets a little crazy. And so what I've said here is the trail segments are to be constructed in accordance with the following standards, guidelines, or best practices. And we list these resources. I want to do a sanity check and just make sure that we should be listing these here, just because what it could do is, these are guidelines and best practices that we're sharing resources with. Is this the right thing to be sharing with bidders?
I don't think so. Unless we're telling them follow this section of this guide. I think it opens it way up. I mean, I think that they would be confused. I would be confused, and and I've looked at these and I'm confused because there's multiple guidelines and there are multiple different groups that do this. And, I think that would be pretty confusing to them to put that work on them to try and figure out, what the differences are and what they should follow.
Okay, so I agree with you, and I want to ask a question. If we put, do we just include the accessibility guidebook for outdoor recreation and trails, or do we let because this was included from another RFP, we could let the person, it could be one of the requirements of the RFP is that the expert is familiar with.
Well, we could ask them to tell us how it's going to be accessible or how they're,
Yeah.
but
How
I, I looked at the Forest Service guide and I have to say I was pretty underwhelmed in terms of its specificity is not very good.
okay,
I looked at some of the sections and it was like, oh, this is pretty much, motherhood apple pie and it doesn't really get into, it needs to be this wide or it needs to be this, this or that. It's just, it needs to be stable, right? The trail. That's pretty wide. So
Okay.
I'm not sure that, I mean, if there's a guide that we come upon, like, maybe the Audubon guide, they get really specific, right?
well, remember, this is a federal grant. No, wait, federal funds. So there's going to be federal guidelines that ADA has to follow. So I guess
Well,
provide the link for that, or do they figure it out?
no, we'd better, I mean, let me just say, I mean, there's the Architectural Access Board, there's the Audubon, there's the Forest Service Guide, there's the ADA law.
But
I mean,
Audubon
there's
is
just a whole bunch of stuff to wade through. I think this is
well,
something,
but Audubon is a state organization, not a federally.
okay,
not-
I understand, but I think we need to be pretty specific as to what we think they need to be following. Because there's
Right.
just a plethora. How's that for a word? A plethora.
Right,
of
and that's why
these.
we need to focus on the federal guidelines, right?
Even in the federal, there's a plethora, right?
Well, that's
is.
what we're paying them for, to weed through, right? But I agree with you, and we should minimize what we're providing, and we need guidance on what to provide, if anything.
Well, then why don't we, tell them to tell us how this is going to meet ADA guidelines?
And maybe it's a couple sentences that you must follow federal regulations for ADA compliance, something
Yeah,
like
but then, in your bid, explain how this meets ADA guidelines.
Yeah.
Okay, because, if that could be one thing that if they don't have any explanation of how it meets ADA guidelines, that would be a factor that we could say they weren't responsive, right?
that. Right. That's a good point, Will. So explain how this meets ADA guidelines. Okay. And then someone's already done this, and we need to figure out who that person is and talk to them to make it easier.
True.
Okay. And so that applies to this whole section. So then the reason we were talking about this was because up here, prevailing wages, and then we have this Buy America stuff. So I think what I need to do here in this compliance section, if you're in agreement, is we need to check with Melanie, Mark, Tim on ARPA money regs that require.
Whatever,
that-
I mean, ARPA's like a complete unknown, and Melanie Otsuko should be looking into this. But, Mark's words were that we're going to be the guinea pig.
Yeah.
And actually, the reason we're going to be the guinea pig is because when they went out and they were looking at the senior center, right? It turned out that the bids they got were so high that they decided to go with, I'm clutching on the name of the trade school that you were associated.
It's Assabet Valley.
Ashtabula Valley, right? That they're going to use labor from there and to do the senior center. I guess that avenue is not open to us, right?
It is not, but it is sort of, if we get a bridge kit that the Student Conservation Corps can put together, it's using similar labor. It's a youth group that's managed by DCR and AmeriCorps. They're trained by professionals. In the same way, it's cheaper labor than whatever else. But I don't know if prevailing wage is required under ARPA. Does the Student Conservation Association meet those requirements, or does that forbid them from you? It seems like that's a very difficult question to answer, but one that
Well,
we'll ask.
in the case of Assabet Valley, John Parent used the words, there's no cost to the labor, right?
Mhm.
That apparently the kids are not getting paid and they're doing it for the experience.
Mhm. Yeah, and in this case, there's a fee for the service, and I don't know if, it seems like it's like a type of internship for them, so I don't know if they must get the dollars. It can't be volunteer. Maybe it is, I don't know.
I don't know.
Anyway, so I flagged the question, but we,
Okay, do we have to put in anything with regards to liability insurance or anything in this, or?
yes, so that was my other question is, where does this go? We need additional project requirements, so we're gonna, let's put it under here, so.
You know,
Mhm.
that's an excellent question for Melanie, because that's supposedly her expertise is.
I've
is,
asked the
uh,
question 15 times. I can't get an answer. I will continue to ask it until
Hey,
I.
If
It's
you
just
were running for Speaker of the House, 15 times would be enough.
nothing, no. I
You should
kept
go
asking,
16 or 17.
I kept asking the question in email. I will continue to ask that question. I've asked for the limitations. I've asked so that we could start understanding what it is, but it's fallen on deaf ears. So now we're certificate of insurance required.
Do we need to go and break into the townhouse to, you know, and
This
go
is
to
a
our
recorded
office? Or?
line, sir. This is a recorded line. So yeah, I do believe we need to include the certificate of insurance requirements. For example, I've seen a lot of state contracts where they listed out what the requirements are, like you need 1 million workers' comp, you need 2 million in liability, you need 2 million in professional liability. So those types of things. So I think we do need to include the limits here.
Only 2 million? That's just amazing, because to do the food trucks again, the St. Mark's is asking for 5 million.
Say that again.
St. Mark's, somebody came on the board, and apparently they have now decided that you have to have $5 million worth of liability insurance to run the food trucks on their property.
So if I want to sell ice cream in my ice cream truck, I need a $5 million bond, liability bond.
Well, someone needs to have it. Now, in the past, the Rotary Club of Southborough, through Rotary International, we do have a $2 million liability insurance coverage, but the Rotary International doesn't go to 5 million, and this is like a major problem for us.
Okay, so to your point, I forgot all about that. The town had sent us 26 pages of terms that need to be included in the bid to make it really fun. So I think in here, so let me correct that we did receive this. So I think in here, I'm scrolling fast just because I'm trying to look for the insurance stuff. I think in here it should list.
This
Oh,
is
yeah.
what they sent you, right?
Yeah, workers' comp, here you go. I don't see a limitation on it. Professional liability, 1 million, 3 million aggregate, other insurance. Yeah, okay, here it is. It's listed. So sorry, I've asked 15 times and got it on the 16th. So we're good. So yeah, we have to include all of this stuff. Ugh. But so speaking of that, remember when we were looking at that bid, it said the percentage needs to be 5%, this percent. So
You know, if the contractor or the engineer screw up,
yeah,
and,
so the
and
contract price, if it's 50 to 150, performance bond, no, payment bond, 50% of total contract, 5% of total bid is there.
But
All right.
if the contractor screws up and you can't really prove that it was really their fault, then it all defaults to the town for liability for this bridge and, you know, the walkways and everything.
Well, if they agree to this bid, this 26 pages, I'm pretty sure are trying to. And there's a long indemnification section, so I think that will work. So I don't think we need to include the certificate of insurance at all here, because it's definitely included down below. So that answers that question. Okay, so I think we're in rough shape, but A shape. This next piece, so one of the ones you, like Tom, had about the organization, and rather than put it at the top because it's really not that relevant, I put it at the bottom of the bid, which would be about Southborough Trails Committee and just a little blurb here about who we are with a link to the website.
Oh, I would have put it on the top. Sorry.
You
I
would?
would have been, this is us.
All right.
I think that belongs in the top.
Okay.
Let's go all the way to the top. Yeah, right there. I mean, isn't that, yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. I was just trying to keep relevant and the
No, they have to go through who, what, where before they got, no, who,
Okay.
why, then they got what, or whatever.
And we do need to include some maps, right? So I'll
Maps
pull,
and some pictures too of the, we probably should include some pictures.
of what?
Just the geographic locations.
Okay, yeah,
And-
like
I mean,
map.
there'll
Mass
be,
Mapper.
yeah, it'd be really like 4 or 5 pictures.
Yeah.
What's
Um,
what's Mass Mapper?
It used to be Oliver, the state's GIS system. You can get aerial vision, aerial pictures. It's like Google Maps, but it's the state's GIS system.
Okay,
And so
cool.
you can put different layers on it, like your wetland layer or your tax property parcel delineation layer, all sorts of things you can play around with. You can put natural trails that are there. will
Well,
show
we
up.
need to put the, you know, the, where we need to be dig safe, right?
Do we need to put it in here for dig safe, or isn't that standard stuff when you're digging around? It's just a law and required. Or do we?
You put it up there. I think you just put it up there a little bit. Just one of those bulleted items says, on the go into the bog trails. Go up. When you talked about the bog trail, yeah, right around here, which is the one that has the
It's gonna be, it's not the bog trail. It's gonna be the second natural surface. This one.
which is
in the-
number 4. Isn't it? 3? All right.
Yeah.
So, I would just say, put a note underneath there. This will be crossing a natural, or I don't know whose gas line it is. Yeah, it's just an information. I think we don't hide it. It's there.
Yeah, and that would come up in the site visit too.
Exactly. But at least it spells it up there twice.
Okay, good. All right, so how are we feeling about stuff?
Good.
Good.
Level of detail? If you were a contractor, would you know how to bid?
Well, I think we're gonna be
Say
adding some
anything about
more
project
detail.
management. Oops. It needs to, right? They need to be a project manager. We didn't
Well, that
add
was that section from that other document that I liked. You're responsible for this. That one that you referenced in the beginning of the meeting. I gotta switch my monitors over. Yeah, that one right there.
Now, with respect to the bridge, we're basically leaving it open to them as to what they come back with.
Duties and responsibilities of contractor / general manager or general project manager.
Point me, I'm not where.
Right where your mouse is. Oh, right where my mouse is. Sorry. Specifications number 1.
Oh, okay. This,
Yeah, that whole thing.
Oh.
Yep.
okay, I did put that, like, possess the necessary experience and skills. But I think specifically, we need to let them know that they are the project manager overseeing, like, as part of the project description, project manager overseeing and managing process, managing day-to-day or something.
Hang on, I gotta make that bigger.
And we also mentioned providing status reports or whatever.
Yeah, we did that down below.
Yeah, we do
Okay.
that under additional project requirements. And this will go through a process with Tim, and he'll be able to help highlight some holes and things like that. Okay.
And we're clear that the signage is not part of this bid.
Yeah,
Okay.
because and there may be, we did not put in here plantings
Oh,
for
yeah.
native for wetland mitigation. So we need to.
Yes.
Is that really part of this project?
Yeah, so we had included it in, we included it in the description for Mass Trails Grant and the ARPA project that we budgeted a small amount for it. We met with Open Space, we met with Freddie to ask for advice on any plantings that we might be able to put to help mitigate the just being in the wetlands, and we put that in front of Concom, both Framingham and Southborough. So it is a very important piece, and oftentimes when you're in the wetlands kind of mucking around, they do appreciate that you are taking it a step further and trying to do good. You're removing invasives, and you are inserting some plants that help.
Do we have to
Yep.
list the species we want them to plant?
No.
No, no, no,
No,
no.
but we do need to be specific that they have to be native to New England, not North America. So there is some language that we'll want to add in there so that it's not that,
But
Pat,
I
can
mean,
also do the plant list for this.
oh, nice. Okay. I don't know that we want to include the plant list in the bid, but we want your expertise when we have to review the plant list. Is that it? I mean,
Yes, absolutely.
that makes sense. Like I'm trying to keep it, and I'm a very detailed person.
so we're asking them to suggest plants for the plantings.
Yeah. Where is that?
We could do like, it has to be within the, the list that Isabel, I think that's a website that lists the plants, don't they? Or does
Yeah,
someone-
there's a bunch of websites that list native plants for wetland species. I can look up a few.
Yeah,
also.
I think that's all we do. For example, it has to be within these,
Native Plant Trust has a great resource.
And how many plants are we looking for them to plant?
it all
Um,
depends how much disturbance.
Yeah, I can't, I have no clue. We just,
I-
something.
I think that's something we need to ask around and see if we can get a little bit more specificity on.
So is there a way we can,
Because if we're asking them to buy seedlings and plant those, right? Or is it just spread seeds or what?
They probably wouldn't be seeds. They'd probably be plants
Mhm.
already in containers that you would dig into the ground.
Okay,
And it's calculated by the square footage of the specific area. So you need like a rough estimate for the dimensions of that area to get an accurate plant list.
and you also need a density of the plants you want them to plant.
Yeah.
Okay, is it,
Okay.
100 per square foot or?
I mean,
Okay.
it also depends on like the size of the plant. So if it's like a shrub or a tree or like a perennial, like they're going to take up.
Oh,
different-
there you go, Catherine. Look at you. Look at bringing these pictures out.
Perfect.
sorry,
Here's
sorry,
me.
Isabella, were you finished? Don't listen to Tom.
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay. I apologize. So I was looking for, we approached Framingham and Southborough Conservation Commission. I forgot we had these pictures. So what you're seeing in this image down below, Will, is the water, is the Stony Brook. This is where the bridge will go, where that arrow is. Do you see that?
Yeah, and also that area there looks like it's floods, but that's a different
Well,
issue.
right now it's at the highest level we've seen it, right? That just happens to be that picture, right? And so where Tom, this picture above it is the boardwalk. So you'll see the guardrails in the upper right hand, that's Route 30. And you see Tom pointing his finger, and this arrow is where the boardwalk will go, kind of on the side of the standing water. That's sometimes water, sometimes not.
So this flat area here that I'm moving my mouse across, a la
Okay.
Tom, is that doesn't flood, you're saying?
This
It never
area
gets-
does
No, it's a
right,
slope.
but the boardwalk will be enough, the trail will come on this upper right-hand picture with the long arrow and nothing but trees and stuff. That's where the trail goes, and then it ends up here. So that if you're looking at in order, it's the first picture on the right, up above that's the natural surface trail, and then the boardwalk will meet the natural surface trail far enough off of the water where even if it floods a little bit, it will be, you can still get onto the boardwalk without issue.
But it looks like Tom, that you're like 6 or 8 feet below road level there.
Nah, not
A little
8.
more than
Yeah, I think my head is probably to the grade of the road. It's a pretty good steep slope there.
Okay, I mean, okay, that'll be good for the site visit, obviously.
Yeah.
And there's no problem with cutting down trees and such.
No, part of the mitigation. There are gonna be some-
Move closer.
Or drink less.
Oh, sorry, is that better?
That's
Yeah.
better.
Okay, so you see these trees, small diameter trees that need to be removed. My finger is the measurement. So there are a few of those. Let's see if I didn't note it somewhere that how many we would be removing. Let me just poke around a little bit. Bella, for the record, for the minutes, can you please indicate that Sam Stivers is a visitor? Let me
Yes.
just say here.
Oh, he's visiting now? Oh, my goodness.
Okay, yeah, up here it says removal of like 2 to 3 trees, small diameter. You know, I tried to specify, okay, there's a removal of 11 to 15 small diameter trees. They're tiny trees, so there is some removal of trees to make the tread for the natural surface earth. And part of our mitigation will be to do some plantings. So here I have listed STC met with Open Space Preservation Committee Chair Freddie to identify the following mitigation measures that can be incorporated into the project to help balance the adverse effects of installation of the boardwalk and footbridge, invasives that can be removed, native trees that can be planted to replace those removed, and other native plantings that could be incorporated into the project to benefit the blah, blah, blah. So I think,
Well, I just, when it comes to plantings, it looked like from what you, in the pictures there, that there's not a lot of low
right,
shrub or plants. So
Right.
planting small invasives down there, they're probably going to die from lack of sunlight.
well, that's why you would choose, and Bella, I'll let you speak to this. You choose shade friendly plants, and I'll let you.
Yes, there's plants that specifically like shady, wet environments. So you can go
Okay.
off a list of plants that
Mhm.
will thrive in those conditions.
Okay.
That's a value add. Thank you. Okay, so let's see, we're building a natural service, so do we want to say identify invasives that can be removed? So let's call this, what do we call it over here? Oh, environmental mitigation.
I don't think it goes to number 2. It just,
Well, that's
Um,
where the natural surface, that's where we're doing it. That's where this stuff has to happen on
I-
this.
Do
It
we
can
really
also-
want them to remove invasives that are not directly on the trail?
Well, part of our proposal is if while we're in there working around, and if we can get volunteers to do this, we should be removing some of the nasties in there. And that's what
Okay. Keyword is volunteers. Volunteers are not covered in a bid.
all right. I knew you were going to flag that. So however we want to do it, the project manager should help us identify at least some of these. We have to include this.
which is fine. You're not telling them to do anything. It just says.
Yeah.
Identified invasives that can be removed. They didn't say they're gonna do it.
But we're asking them to identify. I know that I
Yeah.
couldn't identify invasives.
Well, that's why you're not the expert. We're going to hire you.
Yeah,
I
We're not
understand, but
hiring
I'm not sure that bridge builders necessarily know invasives, right?
Conservation work, for example, has a long history of building trails in environmentally sensitive areas, which is what makes some of these contractors far more appealing than others when they have this really wide scope. They're environmentalists, they're conservationists, they take care of environment, and they build trails, and they do it in the right way, and they have years of experience doing it. So that's the, how do we encompass that, what I just said, and as an expertise, maybe we have to add some language in here that says they can do all of this stuff, right? Like a couple sentences that describe not only do you have to have expertise in building trails, but we need you to have expertise building trails in environmentally sensitive areas. I think
That's fine, but that's not, none of that is necessarily identifying invasives.
no, I know, but
Okay.
you, if you're familiar with environmentally sensitive areas, you are most likely going to know trees,
Mhm.
plants, and be able to
Would-
identify what's
Okay, but it's a long way from saying they should know this stuff to having them do something.
so.
But we're
Spend
not
time
saying-
doing
They're
it.
not doing anything. It just says to identify.
Well, no, but do we want them to do something? So let's get through that.
Well, if identifying is enough, I could do that, because I would just point to a general area and say, there are some invasives out there. You should go look at that. I'm sorry. I just looking at it from from the contractor's viewpoint, it's a little bit unclear what you'd want me to do.
So let's
Right.
get clear. Let's write what we
Okay.
be clear, right? What do
Yeah.
we want as a committee? What do we want? We need to do this. We need to remove some invasives. We need to, and it doesn't mean we can't have some this might be, they propose this approach to
Well,
you. I don't know.
I mean, all I'd say is that identifying invasives is not going to build the trail or the bridge. And you can build the bridge and the trail and have somebody else on a volunteer basis come in and identify
Okay,
invasives.
so, okay, I hear you. And maybe so what we're saying is we want to do this. We don't necessarily need to put it in the bid. However, I think what came out of this long conversation is that I think it would be beneficial to have in there language around a firm that's familiar with working with environmentally sensitive.
That's fine. I mean, that's perfect.
Narrow
We
it
don't want
down.
them to do
Right.
unnecessary damage, basically,
Yeah.
right? I agree
Okay,
with that.
so
That's great.
we keep this out, and we will do that ourselves with volunteers and stuff, but I guess yeah, that's fine. Okay. Good, and I'll add that somewhere it needs to be. Okay.
I'm just gonna throw one last thing, and I know we want to.
Please, yeah.
I think it's okay to say during the creation of the trails stated above, if any invasive species has been identified where the trail would go, it'll be the responsibility of the contractor to remove. That way, there, any trail that they're building, and if there's invasive species, they have to remove it properly versus
Okay.
just pulling it out so it grows back.
No, that's fine. That's fine. So you're saying that the trail that they're building, if
Yes,
there's an invasive growing in the trail, that they remove it properly. That's fine.
Correct.
That's, in fact, you'd probably want that for anything invasive or not, simply because you don't want it growing back and then, cat trying to haul a mower in there.
Yeah, I'll try. But I think, and I don't want to get into this, but invasives, remove it properly. Some that could be reviewed, that could be seen as subjective, as like, what's proper? Can I use chemicals? It's used over.
no, if you're using chemicals and you're in a wetland and you're supposed to be an expert, you're fired.
Right.
No,
You should know what proper is. Yeah. I
But no,
agree.
that's actually not quite true. It is okay at times in environmentally sensitive areas to use chemicals in the appropriate way, right?
Okay, then that's,
But you do have to get lots.
that's still part of properly.
But I wanted to sanity check us to make sure this was good enough and that we don't have to get more detailed. Bella, do you have any thoughts on how this needs to be worded so that we're appropriate, not overkill or underkill?
No, I think that sounds good. And yes, you're right, Kat. Some herbicides can be used in sensitive areas.
That's my stewardship hat. Thank you, Fred, Joyce, and Bella.
Personally, I don't want any herbicide used on my sensitive areas, but that's a different
No,
issue.
nobody loves chemicals, but sometimes it is the only way and done the right
For
way.
like really invasive stuff where you can't get all the roots out, it's like really necessary if you don't want it coming back. And
Yeah,
it
that's
doesn't
why we
really
have
affect the
Roundup.
overall health tremendously. Enough for a point where it's like not even considered.
I guess you'd rule out Agent Orange. Probably.
Just will.
Most
You're
of us
just
are too young for that.
Ooh.
What about carpet bombing and napalm?
Okay. So I think we have a good rough draft still. Need to put a little more work into it to pretty it up. And I think as a next step, and we're going to close soon, as a next step, I'll get it to another draft and have you guys, let's do redline. Does everyone know how to do redline? You go to up here, review, and you do track changes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Redline. So let's play with red lines. And if you want to wordsmith it or add other stuff, do so in your red lines. And then we'll come back at next meeting, which is next Tuesday, and let's try to consider getting it in a final draft for review by Tim. And next Tuesday is the 17th. So come out of the 17th. And this is important, Bella, for the meetings. We'll come out of the 17th with a rough draft or a final draft for review by Tim. And I'll give Tim a heads up that it's coming. And then we'll see who else needs to review it. If it's Tim and then Melanie, we'll go ahead through that process and then we'll meet again on the 24th. Maybe by the time we meet on the 24th, we're ready to sign off on dates and schedule and stuff. We'll have a proposed schedule of when we'll get things going. Does that sound good?
Yes.
Sounds good.
Great. You guys have been,
Who's reviewing the draft?
Tim Davis, Recreation Director. He'll be first review, and then we'll eventually go to Melanie. I think, I'm just not sure the order quite yet. So it'll just, you can put the minutes reflect as Tim Davis will review.
We'll do the initial review if you want to.
Yeah, thank you.
That's fine.
Okay, great. All right, so anything else on this? I'll add the maps and stuff, and I'll try to get this out in the next couple of days. It's probably not going to be tonight because I've got to do some MI master plan implementation stuff for tomorrow's meeting. But I'll try to do it tomorrow.
I'm sorry, what do you need to do? Just read or what?
No,
You
I
guys
have
can
to-
talk about it. Let's end the meeting.
Okay, you're right. Hush, hush.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay, so that's that, and let's see, what else is on our agenda?
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
We're not quite there yet. No,
Yeah,
I don't
I'll-
think we have anything
If
about.
somebody says so be it, or I second it.
No, you can't hush the chair. So trail abutter notifications, this is all gonna kind of come into play when I speak with John Scannell. I'll talk to him about abutter notifications. I kind of want to hear from him about the ADA parking and how that may impact, how we want to phrase that and stuff like that. So I want I want us to be on the same page before I reach out and know that he knows that we're going to be reaching out to our neighbors. Yeah.
Where do we have a butters?
At the very beginning of the trail where we're moving the gate,
We have a
Really
butters there.
yeah, abutters are
Um,
up above. Yeah,
yeah.
there's a few abutters like that are just on the trail and there's a wide open space there. So,
These are
We're
the
gonna-
houses that we saw. Okay.
Yep.
yeah. And we've already reached out to all 7 of them last year, but again, there was some movement, some people moved, so not everyone.
So
is,
that's what the movie Magnificent Seven was about.
Okay, so now, if there's nothing else, any other questions or thoughts?
Can you just move closer?
Anything else before we motion to adjourn?
No.
Okay, does someone want to make a motion?
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 9:28 PM.
I second.
Thank you. Let's do a roll call. Tom McCoolier,
Yes.
Bill Warren,
Yes.
Isabella Bogdansky,
Yes.
Pat McKee. Yes. Great. Thank you all. Very helpful and have a great week.
So Kat, don't go away. I want to hear about your MPIC.
Oh, you probably should stop your recording.
I will.
Okay.
Good night,
Bye,
everyone.
guys.
Bye-bye.